covering the world of professional wrestling from post to post. A show for the Busted Open Nation. This is the Nation Corner. Here are your hosts, Front Row, Tony Justice, and Debhausen.
What's up, pro wrestling fans? This is the Nation's Corner. We are so happy to be back on with you guys tonight. I am joined tonight by our wonderful co-hosts, Tony Justice.
What's up?
And Debhausen.
What's up?
What's up, peoples?
Nada, man. Ready to get this thing kicked off. Let's go.
Awesome.
Yeah. What a week.
It's been a hell of a week. So before we jump into the pro wrestling talk, man, I've had a hell of a week myself. I found out that I was losing my job. All good. I got another one lined up. I was in class this week, putting all the stuff together for the show, watching a lot of pro wrestling. It's been like nonstop. So I'm very excited to be sitting here with you guys, just relaxing and talking pro wrestling. So, Deb, what's been up in your world this week?
Oh my God, my world is insane. I had one hell of a week at work. Glad for it to be over and ready to have this weekend off and relax.
Tony, what about you?
Man, just trucking it up like I usually do. Found out I got to go to the shop again Monday, so I'm here for the weekend, so I'm trying to make the best of it.
Awesome. Yeah, and talking about getting back, like we're starting to see, all the independent shows and AEW and WWE, all these companies have fans coming back into the stadiums and arenas and shows big and small. So I know I'm super excited. We've been to a couple of shows. We went to the NWA tapings. We went to Mission Pro and a few other small things. But we've got AEW coming up. We're going to talk a little AEW in a bit. But here in Charlotte, Fight for the Fallen is in just a few weeks, and we have some of the Nation members will be descending upon the Bojangles Arena for that event. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Miss
Mr. Bojangles. So what about you guys? Do you have any plans coming up, whether it's wrestling or otherwise?
My soonest thing I have is going to Guns N' Roses in Hershey at the end of this month with Tony and Chad and Seth and Chad's wife. It's going to be great.
Can't wait.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be my first time seeing Guns N' Roses.
Me too.
Never seen them live, and I'm really excited about that. It sucks that I'm going to have to miss Mission Pro in Conroe, Texas. But, after the Guns N' Roses concert, I think my next thing will be, if not a Mission Pro event, probably the NWA in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's going to be a hell of a show. So a group of us are going from the Nation, from the Busted Open Nation and from the NWA fam. That's going to be 4 days. We've already got our travel booked for that. We're just waiting on tickets to go on sale. And we've got, I think, what is it? Saturday is Empower, the all women's pay-per-view. Sunday night is NWA 73. And then Monday and Tuesday are the Power tapings for the next season. So it'll be 4 days of a lot of NWA. It's super exciting.
Yeah.
But talking about fans, one of the things that I saw this week, and a good friend of ours, Maureen Tracy, was on the High Spots live stream, and they had a really cool thing. They had this virtual gimmick table where they auction off and sell different signed items and whatnot. And it was a lot of fun. She doesn't do a lot of public appearances, so her and her friend did a live stream. One of the things she mentioned on there was, hey, we're getting back in crowds. Maybe fans should shower, because I think we've all been to those shows where, not everybody, and it's not even the majority, but there are a handful of those people that go to these shows that maybe need to pay attention to their hygiene a little bit. So what were your thoughts when you saw some of the responses and some of the ways that people were trying to defend that?
I think if you're trying to say that she is wrong in what she said, no, she's completely right and just got a point.
Yeah. I mean, come on. How can you not smell yourself? I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know. It's amazing.
More than that. It's not even just
crazy.
people being aware. It's like you're going out in public to an event. Just present yourself nicely. Make yourself look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
it's
get
easy to
going to
do.
a wrestling I get going to a wrestling show and wearing like jeans and a t-shirt, right? We're gonna wear wrestling shirts. You're not gonna be in a three-piece suit. But at the
Right.
same time, just maybe run your head under the water a little bit before you leave the house. I know Hijacker has some experience with this from some of the events that he's worked.
Yeah, man, you get these folks coming out here. My worst was at WrestleMania in Dallas for 31, no 32. And when you get folks from across the country that don't get hotels and they pretty much rent a vehicle and sleep in their vehicle, it's like, where the hell are you guys showering? You got to
Yeah.
shower because it's nothing worse standing in a line of 300 people trying to go get Triple H's autograph, and you got people in front of you and people behind you that don't smell right, and they've been ripe since they got here 2, 3, 4 days before earlier.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Crazy.
nasty.
Yeah, and I'll share
Yeah.
a quick experience. I see Mrs. Front Row is in the chat. We were at an NXT show a few years ago, and there was a guy that sat next to us, and the smell was so bad it was in my nostrils for hours after the event. Like it
Ugh.
was, I couldn't get it off of me. It was just
Ugh.
insane.
Ugh.
So
Yeah,
all the
that's
nation
horrible.
members, I'm sure you're all very clean people, but make sure when you go to the events, especially if you're doing meet and greets and you want to make a nice impression on your wrestler friends that you're gonna get up close with, make sure you're clean. And shout out to
Yeah.
Maureen, one of my favorite people. So this week we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the NWO. Now, in full disclosure, like I wasn't watching WCW at the time, so I can tell you where I was at the time, what I was watching, but I wasn't watching WCW. But I will say that it was such a big event, and it made such a widespread, like the ripples throughout the industry were so much that I heard about it, and I wasn't watching any of that stuff. Like I was a WWE guy. So let's talk a little bit about like what your memories were of that time, and like what were you feeling when the turn came.
Well, I'll go first because it'll be short and sweet because I was not watching wrestling then. I was 6 years old. And I did not start watching wrestling until I was an adult. However, nice, Lily. When I did start watching wrestling and I went back and like researched, everything that had happened before and kind of caught up on the storylines of the last 20 years, it definitely was a huge pivotal moment in the wrestling business, especially from my perspective, looking back on it. You could see as the years have gone on how so influential it was in the way that the industry moved toward. And the way that everything happened afterward. There was kind of like before NWO and then after NWO. Tony?
Yeah. I remember watching WCW Saturday night when Scott Hall first came out of the crowd and they interrupted the match and got in the ring and said, "Do you want a war? Well, you're going to get one." And I was like, "What's going on here?" I recognized him but I was more of a WCW NWA guy, so I didn't really watch WWF at that time. I was watching more WCW, and then as the weeks progressed, and then Nash showed up, and then they were doing the stuff, just doing the stuff, going haywire and interrupting the commentary, and put Eric Bischoff through the stage at Great American Bash, and then the finale, when Hogan was the third man, and I remember watching that live. And just my jaw dropped because Hogan was always, red and yellow, brother, and take your vitamins, say your prayers. He was all about the fans, and for him to turn heel, and LaGreca said on Busted Open about how Bobby Heenan gave it away. Well, I didn't really look at it like that because Bobby Heenan was always on Hogan's case. He was always an anti-Hogan guy, so I didn't really look at it like that, but. I mean, the impact that had on the wrestling world and mainstream, because I mean it's still being talked about today, 25 years later, and funny story. I used to work at a warehouse, Walmart warehouse, and I was a forklift driver. And I was so into the NWO, me and a group of guys, we put NLO on our lifts, new lift order. drove around the warehouse with that on our forklift. So, I mean, I was a huge mark even back then. So, and for us to still be talking about it today, it's very special for the wrestling world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that quote, Hulk Hogan has betrayed, WCW. That's like one of those prime, like quintessential quotes that captures that moment. But for you guys, like, and we talk about who are the best, bad guys in the industry. Did you hate Hogan, or did you sort of appreciate what was happening in the moment?
I've never been a massive fan of the Hulkamania stuff, but I did enjoy that Hulk in NWO. I was drawn to that a lot more than the red and yellow.
Yeah, I mean, at first you're like, you know what, and all the trash being thrown in the ring at him, he deserved all that. But then as he progressed, I think the NWO, and I know it's gone through so many members and factions within factions, and the Wolf Pack, and then the Latino World Order and all that. But in my opinion,
Blue World Order,
yeah. But in my opinion, the NWO was the strongest when it had its core members, Hogan, Hall, and Nash. And I would even include Six in that. But that was, in fact, and I would say that's when they were the strongest. But, that's up for another debate or whatever, but that's just my opinion. But as Hogan progressed, he made it cool. Like being a heel was cool. I mean, yeah, you have your Hogan detractors and all that. But yeah, he just made it cool to be a heel.
Yeah, and being like a WWE guy, like obviously I wasn't a Hogan fan, but like I got Hogan at the time. But he was way cooler. Like Hollywood Hogan was, and to see like some of the segments that I would see with him and Bischoff and just the motorcycles, and it was really a lot about, for me, it was a lot about the vignettes. And can you imagine if that had happened today with social media and YouTube and what they could have done, like all the creative stuff they could have done with what's available today? It would have been insane.
Right. Yeah. At the same time, though, nowadays with social media, we have a lot of spoilers and a lot of leaks. So it's hard to really pull off a surprise.
I agree.
Yeah, and do you think that those guys, I mean, knowing what old school guys they are, that they would protect that story on social media, or would they be, hey, I've got a meet and greet this week, and that's a TV character?
Depends on who it is.
Yeah, I feel like they do better to protect the gimmick and protect everything, other than what people do nowadays. It's just
right.
I just feel like that. And that goes back to that word kayfabe, it goes back to that word. But it's a double-edged sword. Social media can be a good thing for the wrestling, pro wrestling in general, but it's also, it's if people have that in their heart that they want to protect it and not be too open on social media about certain things. That's something that you all have to keep in mind when you're trying to interact and stuff that's going on nowadays in professional wrestling. The Alexa Bliss stuff. I mean, look at Alexa Bliss is a character on TV, and then you see her at the mall with her fiance, on Instagram. So it's weird.
Yeah.
So I want to call out, like, want to shout out to Steven in the chat. He mentions that the story is that Sting was supposed to be the original third man, but turned down the storyline. So, what do we think it would look like had it been Sting instead?
It would have been different for sure. I think it would have done just as well. I heard Corey Graves talking about that on his podcast this week. But I think Sting would have been great with it.
I'm going to go the other way with that. And I'm a huge Sting fan. Sting is like my number one of all time. Um, but I just think that it wouldn't have been as cutting edge if Sting had joined the NWO. I think it made mainstream headlines when Hogan turned, because he was always that, for the fans his whole career in the WWF. Um, so, in my opinion, I think it would have been different for sure, but it wouldn't have had that appeal that it did with Hogan as the third man.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
interesting because Hogan was a pure good guy, like, unblemished for the most part. So it was, I think, a greater shift for him to be in that position.
Right.
Yeah. That would
There's a
have
lot of
been
support in
really
the chat.
groundbreaking, though.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
the chat is
thank you
blowing
all.
up.
Thank you all. It's nice to see y'all.
Yeah, we really appreciate everybody joining us tonight. There's a lot of you out there. We appreciate it. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about you mentioned Great America Bash earlier, and NXT had their Great America Bash this week, and as always, they put on an unbelievable show. Like, it continues to be my favorite pro wrestling show, and I always say
Absolutely.
SmackDown's my favorite sports entertainment show. NXT is my favorite pro wrestling show. They have just the right balance of storylines, physicality. The matches have no holes in them. So what did you guys think about that, about the show as a whole? And before we talk about that, I did want to mention that people are always asking Cody about, them using, about WWE and NXT using Dusty Rhodes, intellectual property and creations and stuff. And he continues to say that the folks in NXT are doing Dusty proud, that he feels like they're doing the legacy, honoring the legacy the right way, at least from an NXT perspective. So I think it's important to note for fans that the family thinks that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. NXT is doing a great job. I don't feel that they've ever done anything to soil his name.
I agree with that.
Yeah. But NXT was a great show this week. My personal match of the week, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, that's you can always count on Adam Cole to have the best match of the week, basically.
Right. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, two of my favorite matches this week happened on that show. I mean, that tag match between MSK and Thatcher and Ciampa. I would have never put Thatcher and Ciampa as a tag team, but holy crap! Like, they're a wrecking crew. They are super physical, no nonsense. Don't cross them in the back alley. I mean, they're like scary together. And MSK is just they're athletic and acrobatic, but not to a fault. Like, I feel like they still bring the psychology, and they were able to stand toe to toe with those guys. And Carter took an ass whooping. Like, holy cow, he got beat up. But that's one of my favorite matches of the week.
Yeah.
But my other match that I wanted to ask you guys about was the women's tag match, the tag team championship match from that show. So we have new tag champs in Io Shirai and Zoe Stark. We know Zoe Stark obviously from Mission Pro. Shout out to Thunder Rosa and all the Mission Pro folks. But she came through there, and even when we had her on our previous show, that was the week that she had her NXT tryout, and she was gone. Like, they immediately grabbed her up. And I think we knew at the time that she was going to be a big, big star. So what do you guys feel about, like, where are they going to go with the new tag champs, and how do you feel about them winning at this point?
I like it. I think, we talk all the time about how NXT has the best women's roster. They do the best as far as the creative, and the matches are always phenomenal. And it was a great match, and I can't wait to see what happens from here.
I agree. I watched that tag match, and Zoe Stark was just unbelievable. She's on her way, as long as she wants it in NXT. I mean, I feel like the sky's the limit with her. There's going to be big things coming out of her in the next few months. And I just, I agree with Deb on the roster in the NXT, the women's roster. It's a solid roster. But now I've seen that um, there was some couple that went to SmackDown to the main roster, or three of them, I think. I know Tony Storm's on her way. And I just
Shotzi and Tegan, yeah.
Shotzi and Tegan, yeah, and they've already changed her name. They've already changed Tegan's name to just Knox. I don't understand that, but
And Shotzi, I think they shortened it to just Shotzi.
yeah,
Oh.
I just don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that those are some talented women, and they're going to do good things, and hopefully they get done the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because we always talk about the old way of doing things, right, is that the talent gets brought up through the Florida loops, then they make it to NXT TV, then they're on NXT pay-per-views, takeovers, and then they go up to Raw and SmackDown. That's sort of the progression. And every time the quote-unquote main roster, takes talent from NXT, people sort of get nervous about, like, where is NXT going to go? What are they going to do for talent? But, I mean, they just pulled 3 women from that roster, and we know from Mission Pro and from other independent companies that there is a boatload of women's talent out there who will fit very nicely in NXT.
Oh, yeah.
So I have all the faith in Triple H and his team and his talent scouting team. They're going to be just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be okay.
So on that note, if you guys had to pick one person not signed from the major company, one woman not signed to a major company to show up in NXT next week, who would it be? And while you're thinking about that, I'll give you my easy answer is Genocide.
Oh, yeah.
I was
think
just
Genocide
thinking
NXT.
Genocide would be one of mine, I would say. Another one I would say, Marty Bell. I would like to see her in NXT or AEW.
Yeah.
I think she could do great.
Yeah.
But Mission Pro.
Basically, let's be honest. The entire roster of Mission Pro could easily go anywhere and stand out.
Yeah, and that's the truth.
Yeah, I mean, look at Red Velvet. I mean, she was with Mission Pro for a little while, and now she's killing it in AEW. They've got so many people from Mission Pro that have been on major shows. Who else has been? Oh, Kylan King. I mean, Kylan King's another one that's been killing it in AEW. So,
oh God,
yeah. I mean, the amount of talent across the industry is probably at an all-time high, and women's wrestling in general is doing probably better than ever. So it was interesting because we saw Toni Storm's vignette. I don't know what they're going to do with her yet, but the fact that they're giving her this, probably several week-long promotional push, complete with graphics and videos and all that stuff, that's reassuring to me. And RA points out Vert Vixen. And yes, RA, Vert Vixen is astoundingly good. I'm a huge fan of Vert Vixen, and we've had a chance to see her, in person at Mission Pro, and oof, she's good. I would not be surprised to see her in AEW before the end of the year, or maybe she would be a good.
Sorry, do we know when Lindsay Snow is going to be able to come back?
So we don't. I mean, it's been a while. We know that she was injured. She had, I think it was a knee injury, possibly. It was a leg injury of some sort. We know she's been at the AEW shows for a while now. She's been ringside. She's up and about. I'm assuming physical therapy and training. We don't know when she's going to be back, but she's not currently signed anywhere as far as we know. Yeah. So where would you see her go?
I would love to see her in AEW. Absolutely. And she's, like you said, she's been at ringside for a while. I've been seeing her pretty much every week. I think she would be great on Dark or when Rampage starts. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. So the last thing, so just one more thing about women's wrestling in general, and my favorite match this week on NWA on Superpower was a tag match that they had with Kylie Ray and Serena Deeb versus Thunder Rosa and Sky Blue, and we were there. We saw this match live, so I was super excited to see the fans, experience it on TV. And for those who haven't seen either Thunder Rosa or Serena Deeb live, make the effort, because those two hit really hard. If it sounds hard on TV, it's twice as hard in person. But they're just two of the best in the world, and I was excited to see this match, especially seeing Kylie Ray, signed, or at least on a sometime deal with the NWA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm enjoying seeing her back. For sure.
So the question is, where are they going to go now with Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa?
That is a good question.
Very good question, because that is a lights out match. I mean, when you see those two in the ring together, going against each other, the sky's the limit for that match. I mean, I'd love to see that on big time mainstream TV, or pay-per-view or something. That is just an amazing match. Those are two talented women.
Yeah, definitely. And Mrs. Front Row shouts out Genocide, Lady Frost, and Kenzie Page. Kenzie Page will be challenging for the NWA Women's World Championship here in Charlotte on July 24th, here at the Hilton at the Gathering. At that show, Nick Aldis will also be defending his World Championship against Trevor Murdoch. So that's going to be exciting. We have tickets. We'll be there. I think along with the Bearded Trio from the NWA, some of the other NWA fans. So it's going to be exciting. A lot of love in the chat for a lot of love for Lady Frost, who recently was
amazing.
hacked and got her stuff back. She got her socials back.
Yes. I love to see that.
Yes.
Cool. So I think we're going to take a go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're going to move into a break here. We've got Shofi sent us another episode of his weekly winner, which is always fun. We're going to give everybody a short break and check this out.
Hey there, Dave LaGreca. It is me, Bash, from This Week in Pro Wrestling History. I just wanted to thank you for having me do This Week in Pro Wrestling History every single Friday between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern on your show, Busted Open. Ouch, I've never stretched my arm that long before in my life. On your show, Busted Open on Sirius XM Fight Nation, Channel 156. So thank you so much for the opportunity to do This Week in Pro Wrestling History for the nation. I'm Bash. You can follow me on the Instagram at Bash and Barb, or you could follow me. You could just go to bashandbarb.com. You could do either one. It's your life. I'm not going to tell you what to do. See you later.
On this day, I see clearly everything is come to life. Better place and a broken dream, and we leave it all behind. Okay, no, don't even say anything. Don't even say anything. I know what you're thinking. Oh, really? So I said something about TV themes. Now you're just gonna go into wrestling themes? Well, this is a pro wrestling podcast, so I figured it's pretty fitting. And we got some stuff going on, so also pretty fitting. I didn't think there would be a problem, but of course, with everything I do, there was a problem with it, right? Actually, no. I was gonna say, you know what? Keep up the good work. Cool. Thanks. Woo! Please excuse my appearance, for I'm about halfway through a renovation project, but we're still able to film a brand new edition of the Weekly Winner Roundup for you to enjoy. Just want to give a special shout out to the Fixer Upper crew here in the Shofi Studios. Speaking of Shofi Studios, I'm Mr. Shofi, and like Fortune 4, we about to change some things. So let's get down to business. Welcome to the Weekly Winner Roundup. This week in pro wrestling had loads shakeups. New champions, check. Superstar call-ups, check. Monster debut.
What the? Oh my God! God Almighty! What a kick! That is Malachi Black.
Check. Oh yeah, and this is the last week of the Thunderdome era for WWE. Raw and SmackDown to be precise. And the first week back on the road for AEW as Road Rager was in Miami, Florida. Yes, sir. Some critical thoughts being shared on the Saturday show via Mark Henry as he enjoyment of Monday Night Raw. It was a pretty decent show. Matt Riddle still in the show, of course, as usual. You expect anything less? His views on NXT, with MSK being praised for their performance against Thatcher and Ciampa. Still not too hot with LA Knight, unfortunately. But I do believe he is being opinions when he says he's reminded too much of The Rock. Now, how I see it as a fan is that there are some similarities, but I can kind of see that LA Knight does have his own swagger when he does certain things. Now, enough of the recap, because we ain't here for that. It's time to count in the votes as the results are in. And this week's weekly winner award goes to NXT and AEW. Now, there is a little bit of movement in because AEW is back up top with 26.5 votes. NXT still in third place, but 1 votes in tag. This is, by the way, week 41 weekly winner segment here. But at the end of the day, it is a pro wrestling. And if I ain't rocking when the show is over, my friend, you just ain't over. Before I go, I want to give some nation shout-outs. Guido and Ezra. Love you both. And I'm praying for the both of you. And we have some birthday shout-outs to go around. My man's Marks and Elder Mike from straight out of Monrovia. Happy birthday to the both of you. Anyway, once again, I've been Mr. Shofi. See y'all next time in the newly designed.
Hey, that was awesome, Shofi.
Here we are. Shofi's awesome, man. He works so hard on those videos, and they come out so tremendous. Shout out to Shofi, man. Thank you.
Great job, Shof.
I want to echo his sentiments,
I thought my
man.
music on my phone started playing for a second.
Right?
Oh, crap, I got my music's on. Oh, that was just him.
I'm sitting here singing along.
Yeah, I mean, we got to give shout outs to our peeps, right? We've got Mark's turned 25 on the 25th anniversary. He was born on the day of the NWO, the big NWO event. So that's pretty cool moment in history. We've got our own placeholder in the group. And of course, Mongrovian Mike. Mongrovian Mike's celebrating his birthday today. In hopefully the best style possible. The big 6-0, Elder Mike. Appreciate him, man. We got to hang out with Elder Mike in Baltimore, and Elder Mike and his wife are just awesome people.
They're the best.
They are.
They really are.
I couldn't imagine my life without Elder in it. I'm telling you.
Yes.
The dude is amazing. And don't get him started on an Elder rant.
Nope. Don't ask him about Tom Morello.
Or Promise.
Or Pearl Jam. Hey, I used to have purple hair.
Yeah, so let's just moving on. I wanted to touch on some of the AEW stuff. It was a big week in AEW. I've often been a little critical of some of the stuff that they do there. Like, it's a fun show. I always enjoy it. But the rules are rarely followed in some areas. And just some of the stuff that goes on there, like, it sort of scratches at my brain when it comes to, like, the world of pro wrestling that's been created. This week was a really freaking good show. Like, it was well constructed. The pacing was good. Like, I felt like I was on a ride, but it was never too fast or too slow. And then we got that big surprise, with Malachi Black showing up, and that was not spoiled for me. And I was talking to a friend of the show, Sam Roberts, earlier today, and he was like, that was because it was supposed to be a 90-day non-compete, nobody was really thinking that he was going to show up anywhere soon. So it's so rare today with social media and all this stuff to get, to not have things spoiled. And we did. We got a huge surprise. We were all on Zoom together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and you guys heard me scream. That was a complete shock. And I'm very glad that it was a complete shock. It was so much better that way than seeing it online earlier in the day.
Right.
So I thought it was interesting. Did you guys see his socials earlier in the day?
I
had heard that he put out this video on Instagram, but I was at work and I hadn't gotten to watch it. So I didn't see, I had no knowledge of this new character or this new look or anything.
Yeah, I had heard it. I heard about it, and then I went back and watched it. And I think even if I had watched it on the day of, I would have just figured he was gearing up for something down the road. It didn't really didn't lead me to believe that he was appearing that night.
Yeah. Great video, though.
Oh, yeah. One thing I want to touch on is the way they connected the dots from Aleister Black when he had his eye put out, and then he came back with the bandana over it, and then he has the contact in, and then to fast forward to Malachi Black and AEW, and how that side of his face has the black kind of tint to it, and he has the contact in. So it's like it's cool how they connected those dots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and RA in the chat saying I think he saw it earlier in the day, on the day, and it didn't spoil anything for him. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad that they were able to pull off a surprise.
Yeah, agreed. So two things with him, he had one of the more iconic entrances over the last 10 years, with his NXT entrance, which was sort of brought into the main roster more or less. But his NXT entrance specifically, I'll be interested to see, creatively what they're going to do with him from an entrance perspective, because their whole look and feel to their setup at AEW is different.
Yeah, especially with the way they have the ramp and the stage come down straight to the ring. That's a lot different. But his first entrance on, if he's on this week coming up or whenever he makes his first entrance, that's going to be spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask
right now. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you guys. So on AEW this week, we saw a couple of interesting things. We saw some idiot rush the stage again, which, don't give him a lot of oxygen. Although I did appreciate both Chris Jericho and Jim Cornette, even though I'm not the biggest Jim Cornette fan. I thought their responses to the guy on Twitter was tremendous. So go look at both of those accounts and you'll see the interaction there. I don't understand the mentality of people who rush the ring, especially with security and wrestlers, and the majority of which a lot of wrestlers train in, actual combat arts. I don't know. It seems like a bad idea to me. But beyond that, I thought it was really interesting. You could tell the experience of Jericho and how he reacted to it during the time when he knew the commercial, or rather the camera would not be on him. And as soon as he came back, they moved on like nothing had happened.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely has the expertise to be able to move on like that, and MJF just rolled with it very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something that I wanted to touch on, the fact that we're getting live crowds back, and so you're going to have more and more of these. Hopefully not, but there's always someone out there that's going to try to be a star and jump the rail or do what that guy did Wednesday. And so with the positives of the fans coming back, you're also going to have the other side too, with the negatives and people that's going to try to come up and, whatever, or make themselves known, whatever, and
get themselves over.
That's something I don't want to be known for. So.
No, and I want to ask Hijacker about this because he has some experience in this area.
Yeah, as I work for a local indie promotion out here, BTW, There's been a couple of times where fans, they allow them to kind of run up to the ring because at our location, we don't have railing between the first row and the ring. So fans are able to get up, but if anybody gets close to the ring, then it's part of my job to, hey, get back in your seat. And one of our locations does serve alcohol. So there was one time where this gentleman went up to the ring twice. And I told him, look, 3 strikes, you're out, buddy. You get up near that ring again, I'm going to escort you out with my security crew. So he was like, all right. He sat back down. No more than 2 minutes later, he's back up and he's actually grabbing the second rope. I get right over to him, grab him around his waist. I literally throw him on my shoulder with 2 other guys with me, follow him out. And I said, sir, you need to sober up. Have a good day. I'll think about letting you in next time you come. So you might want to think twice about buying a ticket because I'm not going to allow that in this establishment. We have a family environment and we want to keep it that way. So yes, some folks just need to calm down. Don't rush the ring because you don't want the wrestlers coming after you because they're going to hit you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my experience with that there at a local event.
Yeah, and that's some old school justice, right? Not Tony
Right.
Justice, but old school justice.
Hell, I don't want H-Jam coming after me, so.
No.
Oh, it's okay, Deb. You'll be all right,
with him in
Deb. I'll be
person.
all right.
I've been with him in person with HJM. There was a incident in Austin when we went to Mission Pro back in May, and we got gypped by a parking attendant, and we got scammed out of $20, and hijacker was with us, and he got out of that truck, and me and him both went looking for that dude, and we couldn't find him, but that was HJM at that point. I don't want to be on the other side of that coin with him after me.
No.
Yeah, I was afraid we were going to have to call our friends in law enforcement for some assistance after that. But
Yeah, right. Hey, Chris.
yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stories of stuff like that. That the guy that attacked Bret Hart at the Hall of Fame, and to see him jump in the ring, and then Travis Brown. I mean, of all people, and just
Yes.
I mean, here's 6'8" MMA practitioner and UFC guy. Like, that wasn't the best plan. And then, of course, him getting dragged out and being beaten senseless by everybody along the way.
Yeah. And if I remember right, Tommy Dreamer got a shot in.
Yeah, I think so. I remember Dax Harwood,
Yes.
who was Dash Wilder at the time. He got the guy when they were carrying him out.
Yeah.
I think everybody had a try. I think even Natty might have gotten a shot in. I don't know. Everybody seems
Probably.
But yeah, so if you're watching this, don't do that. Don't jump the rails.
It's not a good look.
It's not going to end well for you. So I wanted to ask you guys, like, we talked about our favorite matches of the week, but what were, and of course we're supporting the Busted Open Nation. We're big fans of Busted Open. They're been very supportive of us and our show, and us as individuals. So I know we all listen to the whole show 3 hours a day, every day. Right, Billy Ray?
I do.
So what was your favorite either moment or interview from this week?
My favorite, I think, probably Nick Aldis. He's always fantastic. And I liked the back and forth that he had. That was probably my favorite moment of the week.
I had a couple of them. One of them was the Jericho interview, of course. And then of course, every time Jericho's on, it's gold. And the second moment of the week was when LaGreca did another call out to Thunder Rosa and told her to watch her back. And he's not the same LaGreca next time. He's going to be swole.
He's going to be swole.
He's going to be swole. I belly laughed when I heard that. Those are my moments.
Insert Rocky training montage.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I like Dave. I'm a huge fan of Dave, but I've seen
I
Thunder
love
in
Dave.
person. It's not going to go well.
No.
We were there in Buda, Texas the first time around. It didn't go well for him then. It's not going to go well for him again the next time. There was a lot of good interviews. It's interesting that you liked the Nick Aldis interview because they didn't talk any wrestling. That was all soccer,
No.
right? It was all,
Yes.
football.
But it was funny.
It was very funny because you don't usually hear Nick talk about anything but, the NWA, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I did have a long conversation with him about Game of Thrones once, but that was interesting. But for me, I think the most interesting and realist interview I heard was the Briscoes. Like, I've never really heard them in interviews or in podcasts. I've seen them cut promos. We've seen them at Ring of Honor shows live a ton of times, the Crockett Cup and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But those guys were like, they were unfiltered. Like, very unfiltered. So what do you guys think? And it's Bully always calls them one of the best tag teams on the planet that a lot of people don't know about, because not as many people obviously watch Ring of Honor as they do the bigger promotions. So what do you guys think about the Briscoes?
I don't know much about them yet, but I'm interested, and I am definitely going to keep an eye on them moving forward.
I would like to see them on a bigger stage than a Ring of Honor. I think they are one of the realest tag teams out there, being brothers and just being hard hitting, like Bully has described, being in the ring with them and against them. They just are a hard hitting tag team, and the matches that I've seen of them have always been entertaining. I would love to see them on a bigger stage.
Yeah,
it's interesting to hear a guy like Bully, who's been there, done that, and been in there with like everybody, right? He's been in there with pretty much everyone who's been anyone in the business, and he says over and over again that those guys hit harder than anybody, and they're not nearly as big as a Sheamus or a Drew McIntyre or a Mark Henry or any of those people who you would think would be more physical, stronger opponents. But Bully says, like, when Jay Briscoe jumped out of the ring at him and leveled him, well, he leveled Bully Ray. that's saying a lot. We've seen them a bunch of times here in Charlotte at Ring of Honor shows, and every match is bloody, physical, and I feel bad for whoever they're in the ring with. It doesn't matter who it is. I highly recommend, if you're not familiar with the Briscoes, go on YouTube or Honor Club and look up some of their ladder matches, because they're like day one Ring of Honor guys. They've been around forever, with some super physical stuff.
Right.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys about is, they've been talking about next week we're going to do a preview of Slammiversary on Saturday night. We'll do a 7 to 8 o'clock show. Make sure everybody can get over to the pay-per-view at 8. But Deonna Purrazzo has an open challenge for her Knockouts championship, and I think there's a lot of, if we look at the open door, the forbidden door rather, there's a lot of possibilities out there. So who would you guys like to see answer that challenge?
Well, my default answer is Thunder Rosa, but we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Yeah, I agree. Thunder Rosa is my go-to. I'd love to see her, and she's already been doing stuff. When she showed up in AEW, that was a forbidden door kind of thing. I just, Thunder Rosa. I wanted to see Lady Frost do it. Genocide is another one.
Yeah.
So
Vanessa and Lily said Chelsea Green, which I totally agree with. That's more probable, I think, than anything else.
Yeah, and if she returns to Impact, does she return as Chelsea Green or as Laurel Van Ness?
I hope she returns as Laurel Van Ness. I hope so. That would be great.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. What about you, Tony?
I would love to see her show up as the Laura Van Ness. I think, Chelsea Green, I think that name would be too synonymous with NXT. So I would love to see, this other gimmick that she has. I would love to see it on a bigger stage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm seeing Hikaru Shida in the chat, and suddenly got very excited for that match. I need to see Deonna Purrazzo versus Hikaru Shida immediately.
Yeah.
Be a great match.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I think Chelsea Green would be a great addition to that roster, definitely.
So I'll throw one out there that I don't think a lot of people would suggest that I think would be a great match would be Deonna Purrazzo versus Holodead. We're starting to see Holodead was on AEW Dark last week. We're starting to see her in more high profile matches. Obviously, she's been a mainstay of Mission Pro and in other places, partnering with Thunder Rosa as the Twisted Sisters. But we had a chance to talk to Holodead in Buda a few months ago. And she's scary. She scared me, legitimately scared me. So she's someone that I think that could really bring the fight to Deonna.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Agree.
Yeah, every match I've seen Holodead have is just a banger. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
John from South Jersey said, "What about Tessa?"
That's a whole other topic, right? I mean, so look, we're not backstage. We don't really know what goes on there. We read stuff here and there, and whatever happened between them. But just strictly from a performer's perspective, we've seen Tessa a ton of times. She was our champion here at Queens of Combat. She's an unbelievable performer, like one of the best in the world. Tessa versus Deonna would be incredible. But so that's an interesting question. Like when Tessa left Impact, she was their world champion, like the world champion, right?
Yeah.
So would she come back to challenge for just the women's title, or would she come back to try to regain her world title?
Mm-hmm. That is a great question.
I would see her just coming back to challenge for the women's championship. I don't know about the main stage with the world championship. I don't know. But we did see footage that Tessa released on her Instagram, I think a couple of days ago, or it could have been yesterday, where she was in a ring in Texas, I think, because there was a Texas flag on the wall, and she was doing flipped over the top rope and did her whole little spiel. So that could be a preview of things to come for her. I don't know. I mean, that's just one of those things where when it happens, you'll be surprised. So
shout out to Sean, who's suggesting Tessa versus Kenny. I'm not mad at that. I would want to see that match.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be better than a Kenny had that match with a blow up doll at that time.
Yes. He's had matches with little kids too, so who knows? So let's, in wrapping up, like there was one more thing I wanted to touch on. I wanted to talk a little bit about next week's AEW, the card. I know Deb, you had pulled the match card, or at least what was advertised so far. So let's do a quick run through of what we can expect on Wednesday.
So running down the list, we have Brian Cage versus Ricky Stark for the FTW Championship. We have Ethan Page and Darby Allin, my two favorites, for in the coffin match. I'm incredibly torn on that match. I have no idea who I want to win. Then we have Jon Moxley versus Machine Gun Carl Anderson for the IWGP US Championship. Christian Cage versus Matt Hardy. That is going to be amazing. Both of them are at a really good point in their career, and they both look amazing. Then it's advertised we have Penelope Ford versus Yuka Sakazaki. So that's all I saw so far and what's advertised.
Okay, so go back to the first match.
Yes.
What was the first match you listed?
Ricky Stark.
So
FTW Championship.
I feel like right from the beginning they put the FTW title on the wrong person. Like to me, Taz has like the FTW is literally F the world. It's this like gritty, almost hardcore, like, antisocial. Like to me, Eddie Kingston is the FTW champion, or his character lends itself to being more of an FTW. Like Ricky Starks is awesome. We've all seen him in NWA. We've seen him in AEW. He's tremendous, but he doesn't really, to me, he doesn't really capture the essence of the FTW, brand.
No, not quite. He does have the swagger though. But he's not as like extreme the FTW as Eddie Kingston would be.
Right, I agree with that. Eddie Kingston has that attitude. He has that, you believe everything he says when he's on that microphone. And to me, that is the quality to be an FTW champion. So I think you're right, front row. I think the belt was put on the wrong person.
Yeah. Is one thing I noticed that we keep missing from these cards from AEW is, and I know Britt's been cutting some great promos and stuff, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of the women's world title. And I don't know whether they're waiting for something, I don't know what they're in a holding pattern for, or like it doesn't feel to me like they're building a challenger for her title, unless you guys are seeing something I'm not.
No, I agree with you. I think it does feel like they're lagging a little bit on something.
Yeah. They started to go with Nyla, and I think that's still in the works. I don't know. But there is one person that they need to keep, continuing with Britt Baker, and we all know who that person is.
We do, but is the timing right? We don't know. Like I don't know anything about contracts. Like I'm just a fan of
Yeah,
them, right?
I'm just saying. I'm just speaking on what I see on my TV. I see Thunder Rosa and Britt in the ring together. That is blood feud. That is after that match they had in AEW, the main event match in AEW. I mean, they can carry that feud on for 6 months if they wanted to. And I don't think that's over. I don't think it's over. I think that timing is going to be right for another the feud to be reignited, and it's going to happen again. I can just taste it.
Yeah, and Mr. Twisted says in the chat, now that they're in front of, maybe they were, waiting for the fans to return to build the next challenger, which does make sense. I mean, AEW's been in front of fans at Daly's Place, but now they're in front of actual arenas. So Britt can really get out there and get the whole crowd. You're talking, 5, 10, 15,000, however many are at a show. There's an opportunity to get in front of a crowd and really build a story. But yeah, I mean, for me, of course it's Thunder, but if it's not Thunder Rosa, then you're sort of limited, not from talent perspective, but from a storyline perspective. They haven't really told a story about anybody else chasing that title right now.
Right.
I would say from a talent perspective, let Serena Deeb have a run at that, like a true run at it, because those matches would be great. Serena Deeb is just incredible. So
I agree with that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you mentioned Christian Cage versus Matt Hardy, and to me, part of me is like, okay, we've seen that, but we haven't seen it in AEW, and we haven't seen them tell this story. So I'm cautiously optimistic about the match. I don't know what story they're going to tell. As I said, we're going to be at Fight for the Fallen, so I'm hoping that the story, sort of spreads out over the next few weeks, and we get to see a culmination of some of this stuff in person. But what are your expectations about that match?
I think it's going to be hard hitting. I think it's probably going to be an emotional match for sure, considering the history they have.
Yeah. Front row said it, we've seen it in WWE, but we have not seen it with the AEW twist. And I just feel like they've got more to tell in that story. And I think it's going to be, it's going to be a great match. Because they're both there for a reason. We all know it. They're there for more than just, what they're going to tell story-wise. They're good assets to have behind the scenes also. So whatever knowledge they have to give to the younger talent coming up, would be great. So let's go on this match. I'm ready to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because if you look at from a backstage and coaching perspective, look at the list of people that are available to the young talent, from Paul White to Mark Henry to Christian Cage and Matt Hardy and Dean Malenko and Arn Anderson, and the list goes on. There's probably 5-10 more people that we don't even know about from a production standpoint that have been there and done that forever. So it's
Right.
almost like they're destined to succeed with a team like that. So I just hope, like Bully always says, I hope that the talent are taking advantage of having those people. And from what Mark has said, it sounds like they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And from all the podcasts that I listen to, everybody seems to be really enjoying having the veterans around to kind of, pick their brain a little bit on things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did want to, before we wrap up, and Deb, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. You listen to probably more podcasts than we do. So if you could, advise folks to listen to one show from this week, was there one that stood out to you?
Yes. Oral Sessions. Renee is out on maternity leave. Danhausen is guest hosting. And this week, RJ City and Ethan Page were on as guests. And I highly recommend it. It was a great show.
So
we know
this is
all
funny
three
'cause
of them are magic.
This is funny because Sean posted a couple of minutes ago tequila in the chat, which is
Yeah.
Danhausen's joke. His entire
Yes.
gimmick is around dance. Tremendous. Good timing.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah, that was I listened to that at work the other day right after Busted Open went off the air, and it was just such a great episode. And those three guys are like special in my heart. I'm a Patreon subscriber to Ethan Page, so I fully support him. I watch RJ City in his underwear making coffee every Sunday morning. And if you watch his Sunday morning show, you will see David Arquette and Blue Meanie and Matt Camp in the YouTube chat pretty much every week.
Nice.
Matt Camp, formerly of Busted Open Radio. Judas.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't get a chance to listen to as many podcasts as I used to. I always make the effort to listen to Sam Roberts' podcast because I usually watch him record it live on the weekends as part of his Patreon. I won't spoil it, but he has a good guest on this week. But he's now, because everyone's vaccinated, he's got people back in the studio in his home studio. So last week he had on, or a week and a half ago, he had on Nick Gage. So if you're a fan of Nick Gage or you want to know more, listen to both the Busted Open interview and the Sam Roberts interview. They're very different stories, and they're both really, really fascinating. So, go back and check those out.
Mm-hmm.
Anything from you, Tony?
Oh, I was just, going to say Nick Gage is that's an interesting cat. I hope Matt Cardona knows what he's getting himself into. That match is going to be brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen.
Speaking
I think
of Matt
Deb had some
Cardona,
interaction.
So I also listened to Matt Cardona's True Long Island Story, which I highly recommend as well. He kind of goes through the timeline of the whole Zack Ryder saga, and they kind of go through each week and what happened in his original YouTube show and his struggles getting his character off the ground. It's a very interesting listen.
Cool. Well, I think we covered pretty much everything except for the million things we didn't cover. So, I always make notes for stuff like this, and we get through like a quarter of them. There's so much stuff going on in the world of wrestling. There are so many shows on every week. Like there's at least 6 shows that I wish I had time to watch, but I don't because I'm usually on Zoom with you guys. So Deb, why don't you let folks know where they can find us on the socials?
We are at Nation's Corner on Twitter, The Nation's Corner on Facebook and Instagram, and I am at That's So Debonair on Twitter and Instagram at truth_resists_simplicity. It's an old quote.
Tony?
No. Well, you can reach me on Twitter and Instagram at Tony Justice, AJFA. And those that are Metallica fans know what AJFA stands for. So I'll just leave it at that.
And I'm just Front Row, which may or may not be my real name. Nobody really knows. WWE Front Row. I really appreciate you guys being here tonight. I appreciate everybody in the chat watching and on YouTube. And if you didn't watch it live, if you're watching it later on, we appreciate you too. We will be back here every week at 7 o'clock. We're aiming to run about an hour, maybe just over an hour, to be mindful of folks' times, especially if there's pay-per-views like next weekend. And there's a lot of shows coming up that we're going to try to do some live streams from. Like I said, there's a ton of stuff coming up, so stay tuned to the socials. And too, we should have a custom address for YouTube. We're just waiting for that to go through. So appreciate everybody, and everybody have a great night.